Aluminum giant Novelis is the largest supplier of aluminum sheet to automakers and beverage companies in North America. Its president and COO, Philip Martens, told me that he's finding the brightest opportunities in Brazil, but the biggest question marks surround Europe.
I have to say the issue in Greece has given us all a chance to pause and reflect. And if you were to ask anybody before that issue became as notable as it has been, we probably were all more optimistic. Now everybody is looking at from a perspective of what's the lag, and is there a lag, and is consumer demand going to be, hurt as we go into the fall? I don't think anybody can accurately predict yet, but clearly there's a very pessimistic outlook that could say we're into a double dip. I don't carry that. We are concerned about the European market, and we are concerned of where that could go.
That's a big market for aluminum, bigger than many would expect. It's what, 15 to 25% of aluminum consumption on that continent. So have you seen changes in consumptions yet?
No, we haven't, and that's the real reason for this kind of look on one side versus the other. In fact, what we've seen since January is very strong demand for the product that we're making. I would have to tell you that we're running at 100% right now.
What part of this recovery are we in right now?
I think we're actually entering what we would call the second phase of it. And the reason I say that is in the first phase, we saw recovery in the Asian markets in South America. In this phase, we've seen strong shipments out of our factories in Europe at levels that we probably wouldn't have forecasted last September, October.
You mentioned the first growth really came out of Asia. China's trying to cool off its economy. Metals demand has actually turned negative there. What do you foresee? I mean, does that cooling off cause you concern?
It really doesn't, because if I look at the aggregate growth of China over a number of years, I still think it's going to be strong. I think in any economy, the ability to maintain the kind of growth they've had is very difficult. But I do think you often have to look at things in our business over the long term. And within that regard, I think China's still going to be a strong economy.
When do you expect them to pick up their demand for metals? The demand has turned negative.
It has. I think you're going to have to just watch this space a little bit. I don't expect it to hold soft like it is, or it's just turned negative for no more than a quarter. I think it's going to come back out. The underlying infrastructure growth there is strong enough to pull it up.
So you mentioned South America as a place that you're betting on growth.
Yeah.
Why such an investment in Brazil? What attracts you to that market?
First of all, Brazil has what we consider to be fairly robust fiscal economic policies. We see that economy as stable even through the leadership transition they're going to go through. And we've also noticed that over time, we're not the only ones betting on that market. The auto sector's investing there. Our customers are investing heavily. But it's really driven by consumer demand. And we look at the number of new jobs added. We look at the economic growth that's generally in the arena around the larger cities, etc.
Give me a sense of what you're seeing here at home. Where is consumption picking up on a geographic basis?
Well, clearly there's been some spikes in auto. For us, we supply quite a bit of auto aluminum sheet, and you can see that coming up. Beverage can for us is slightly up, even though the market is flat. We've gained a little share there. But I would be careful to say that the United States, of all the regions of the world, is probably the most tempered in terms of its growth. And we'd call it a moderate, flat economy here.
What do you attribute that to?
It's a very good question. Very good question. We do not see the return to demand in our factories as we've seen in the other parts. We don't see the GDP growth here that we've seen in other areas. I think there's still a prolonged, hangover from 2008 and 9, particularly in the housing sector. The auto sector is still operating at historical low rates. There still is high joblessness here, and that's not going to go away overnight.
That was the head of Novelis telling us about the hangover that he still sees here in the United States when it comes to economic growth in the wake of the financial crisis.